Hey, so this is a pedalboard build video. I just put together a big pedalboard. I haven't had a concrete leave it together board for probably a year and a half or 2 years because I change things out, mess around a lot. So I wanted to put something together for my new band now that we're starting to play live. And I thought you might be interested to see my process behind that, how I kind of picked what I wanted to be on the board. It's difficult sometimes because I don't want my board to be huge, but I like the subtle variations that, maybe 2 different fuzz pedals could give me. So let's walk through it step by step. And maybe if you're interested in this, I could do more like this. I like to put together mini boards for myself. So let me know in the comments if this is something you like and you want to see more of. And if you want to see more, let me know like a theme or a genre or something for a mini board. And maybe that could be the next pedalboard build video that I do. But first, let's get all these pedals out of here. And I'm going to start with a notebook just to write down the planning process. Okay, so I'm writing this down really to help you visualize it. I wouldn't do this for myself when putting together a pedal board. So let's start with the number of pedals to go on the board. I'm using a Pedaltrain Classic 2, which I know I can fit quite a few pedals on, but I want to keep this simple and easy to use. So I'm using a Walrus Audio power supply that has 7 outputs, and I'm pretty comfortable daisy chaining out of one of those outputs for some of the lower draw pedals like the Dirt or Tuner. So that brings us up to, we have 11 spaces for power. And then there are 2 pedals that I know there are no substitutes for. I could maybe go through and say, here are some pedals with similar functionality that do maybe a similar thing, but I know in the end that I'm going with these 2 for their categories. So I'm gonna skip that and just write down the Red Panda Tensor and the Damnation Audio Ugly Twin. Both of those are pretty key to the sound of this band or a specific part. So from there, I know I only need 1 reverb and 1 or 2 delays. After the reverb and delay, I know I need 1 dirt pedal that kind of crunches things up and is still clear, lets things through, so that is kind of its own category. I'll write that down. I know I also need a spot for something weirder, something to use during this one solo and for a couple other parts where I have feedback. And I don't really know what's going to go in that spot. It could be anything, but it's got to be weird. So we'll just write that down. And if you add that up, including the second delay, that leaves us with 3 pedals left. And they can be any dirt. I'm probably going to want 1 fuzz and 1 distortion. And then the third could be something else. But who knows? That's what this is for. So first is reverb. I picked a handful of my favorite reverbs, and they're going to be tough to choose from, just like every other category for this. I really love all of these pedals, but it's about finding the right sound for this board and this band. And in this case, I'm looking for a thick, modulated reverb. And so the quick one that I can spot that needs to go is the Mantic Proverb. It's not really too modulated. And next, the Whatever should probably go. It does have a modulated mode, but it's more of a chorus with some space to it than your typical modulated reverb. And then the resound, that has a modulated mode, but it's kind of a bandpass filter sweeping weird thing, which I like, but it isn't the sound I want. And it's got some extra features that I really don't need, so it's gonna go. With these three, they all have great modulated reverb modes. I love them all, and I could really be fine with any of these on the board, but I love to nitpick. I love to figure out the exact perfect tone, and we're gonna choose. So the Atmosphere is gonna go first because it has a modulated mode, but it's not really thick and dense. It's pretty airy, which is nice, but not for this. Next, the Caverns is gonna have to go. I don't really need the delay on it, and the modulated mode is great, but maybe too thick. I'm not sure, but overall, I think the Fathom is a more simple reverb, and that's what I'm gonna use. So delay is a little trickier because I don't know how many I want, but looking at this group, it's pretty easy to say the one that stands out is the Sending, and for that reason, I'm actually gonna let it go because it's a little dirtier with the preamp and a little more mid-range focused, and it's gonna be in the middle of a pedal board filled with other dirt pedals, so it probably isn't necessary. Between these four, I know I'm gonna end up choosing one normal modulated delay and one weirder delay. So for the normal modulated delay, the Art Van delay or the El Capitan are both great choices. I think the Art Van delay will win out for me because it's a little less mushy and a little easier to recall my settings, which makes setting up really simple. So the No Memory is really nice for a weird delay because it does the My Bloody Valentine trem arm thing, but I actually used the In Limbo a lot when recording. It has an ARP mode which lets you double and half the delay time to double and half the pitch, and it's momentary, really subtle. Probably won't be able to notice it live too well, but because I used it when recording, I'm gonna stick with it. Choosing an after reverb dirt is actually really tricky. You want that clarity and to let things through, but still crunch things up, and it's something you just kind of pick up on as you play pedals like this. The first I'm going to get rid of is the Splatter Blaster because it's really meant for playing in stereo and I won't be doing that, so it's a little overkill. Next, I'm going to get rid of the Trader. It's an awesome double distortion, but what makes it good for after reverb is its clean blend, and the two sides don't sit together in a way that glues the signal together, so it's gonna go for that reason. The Fuzz Peaks is actually going to be next, also with a clean blend. I love the clean blend on this. I think it's EQ'd in some way, but the reason I'm getting rid of it is because it's a little too high gain for this purpose. Next, I'm gonna get rid of the Dude Incredible. I love harmonic percolator after dirt, but I don't really need the IVP side. And I have other standalone harmonic percolators, but I like the darkness of the Dude Incredible's percolator circuit. Now, the Germ Warfare is a boost that is almost an overdrive because of the gain knob, and it really lets things through well, but it's not quite crunchy enough. I think the Longsword is the right medium, and it has just as flexible of an EQ, so I'm going to go with the Longsword. Choosing a weird pedal was really difficult, especially because I didn't know exactly what I wanted. You can kind of see that with this grouping, but the first I'm going to get rid of is the Fuzzy Gates. I think it won't really work for this purpose. I want to create noise with this weird pedal, and the Fuzzy Gates is a gated dual tremolo and fuzz, and I'm a little worried that it would gate out too much signal. Next to rule out is going to have to be the Rainbow Machine. I actually used this when recording, but I'm afraid it's a little too normal these days. I feel bad saying that, but I think I can get weirder with the other two, and for that reason, I might as well go with one of the other two. So between these two, either is perfect. The good thing is they're the same size, so I can swap them out if I'm feeling one way or another for different shows, but ultimately I'm gonna go with the slowly melting, just because it is really, really weird and really noisy. For one of the dirt pedals, I'm gonna go with a distortion. I discovered that a great fuzz tone is actually a distortion pushing an amp really hard into breakup. The first I'm gonna rule out is the Distortion. I love it, especially for the price, but I think it might be a little less flexible than the others, and for that reason, I'm gonna rule it out. Next, I'll rule out the Nepenthes. It's a rat-ish distortion. In fact, all three of these are in some way related to the rat, even if it's just the tone knob. But the Nepenthes I've had for the least amount of time. I'm the least familiar with it, so I'm less comfortable adjusting it on the fly if I need to change something mid-set or mid-song. And then down to these two, I love them both so much. Either would be perfect, but I'm gonna choose the DRV for a super nitpicky reason. It has a nice low-end cut that I think will help me sit well in the mix of the band, especially with a fuzzy bass and lower rhythm guitar. For the next dirt pedal, I'm going to go with a Fuzz. You know I love Fuzz so much, and I have a lot of Fuzz options. This is a difficult choice. The first thing to rule out is the Dude Incredible, not because of how it sounds, but because I have the long sword on the board already, and I like to mix things up if I can, keep them from different builders. It's not a hard and fast rule, but I think you can get different sounds, different character if you do that. Next, I'll rule out the Eraser Head. It's a feedbacky, spitty fuzz. I like it a lot. It gets gnarly, but I think it might be a little too noisy for this situation. I don't know if it will add too much noise live or if it just won't be smooth enough, so I'll get rid of it. Next, I'm going to get rid of the Double Muff, one of my absolute favorite pedals. It's older, it's got a little hum, a little hiss, and ultimately it doesn't get super thick, even with the gain up high, so I'm going to rule it out. Now, the Fuzz Peaks and Bloody Get are both based off the Black Russian Big Muff, but with a lot more mid-range. That's how you get me to like a Big Muff. But I'm going to choose the Buzz over them just because it's smoother and a little less gain, which lets me stack it easier with other dirt. For the last dirt pedal, I'm looking for something that's maybe a boost or an overdrive, something with character for the beginning of the chain. And so the first thing I'll rule out is the Lunar Eclipse. This is because it's really meant for after dirt pedals, to re-clip them, hear them in a new context. It has character at the beginning of the chain, but maybe not enough for this situation. Next, I'll rule out the Lamplighter. It's actually not a dirt pedal at all, it's a compressor. I like to use a compressor as a boost into an amp to break it up or into a distortion pedal. It can give you a fuzzy characteristic, but really that's not enough for this situation. I think I'll skip it. Next, I'll rule out the Even Anguish. It's another harmonic percolator pedal, but this one is super bright. I like that a lot in some situations, but as a boost, I think that would just get brighter and brighter the more I stack, and so I'm going to rule it out. Next, I'm going to rule out the Signal Overloader. I really love this pedal. It's one of my favorite boosts, but it's maybe too strong, too much character. It can really overload things, really destroy them. I want to keep some clarity here. Next, I'll rule out the Reverberation Machine. I like this for a boost because it's kind of an interesting drive with a little bit of reverb for character, but I don't know if I'll get enough use out of it in this situation. And last, this is a really tough choice. Ultimately, I actually chose the Trigonaut because the Gigantum didn't have Velcro on it. That was the deciding factor. I love them both. Who knows, I might swap things out. Nothing about this board is final, but I'd like to keep it fairly steady with only swapping one pedal out here or there. Okay, so here we are on my floor. What we have to do next is organize and then cable, and we're done. So I kind of know the order this is going to go in, but let's just talk through it. So first is tuner. That's going to go right at the beginning so I can mute everything, not have to worry about turning off pedals to get the tuning clear. And we know last is the longsword, so let's move that there. We can probably now put all of the delay and reverb at the end and all of the dirt at the beginning, just for a rough idea. So let's put things together. And there it is, the whole board is put together. Let's plug this in and hear how everything sounds.